Mr. Parsons made it a priority to not waste a moment's time in getting him replaced. And we just hired, she hasn't started yet, her background is being completed, but we just hired a woman named Gina Nelson to replace him. She's been a drug prosecutor for the Attorney General's office, Marty Jackley. You all remember Marty was U.S. Attorney, and then of course Attorney General. She's been there about a year and a half prosecuting nothing but large-scale drug cases, and before that, she was with the state's attorney's office in Pennington County for 15 years. So we feel real lucky to have her. She's going to start within about 30 days. So we'll be back up to a drug unit of 2 full-time prosecutors and a support person whose only job is to prosecute drug cases West River. And fully 50% of those cases come from the Pine Ridge Reservation. We still have that task force, which every day is down here. Justin Hooper, Tucker Amiot, some of you know, is back with BIA law enforcement, led by Dan Cooper at the FBI. Yes, sir.
Richard Greenwald.
Thank you, Greg. As you are probably well aware of now, the tribe has passed a zero tolerance to the methamphetamine issue and convictions in federal court. Yeah. And I would like to see that there is a way that your office, when a conviction is handed down and somebody is sentenced to time in prison for distributing methamphetamines or any other dangerous drugs, that our tribe is notified so it could begin its process of banishment.
How do you want them notified? We'll make it happen.
Either through the president's office or through the law and order committee maybe, so that they could start the process of that law. We have a zero tolerance to that, and I think we need to stand by that, yeah.
Whether or not they're sentenced to imprisonment, is that correct?
Exclusionary law, yeah.
Is that, I'm sorry?
Yeah, it's an exclusionary law, so they're exclusionary.
No, I understand, but just the conviction alone will be sufficient, right?
Yeah.
Okay, then you'll hear of everyone. We'll send it to the president's office. And if he tells me to send it somewhere else, we'll do that.
Thank you.
And you may want us to send it to the chief of police, whatever you like.
Yes.
That's fine.
Stephanie Leisure.
Hi, Greg. Not only that, I know that with the jurisdictions running concurrent, when we have a lesser misdemeanor charge of methamphetamines here on the reservation, and it's sent to your office via the FBI, I would just like more cooperation in working with our AG so that we are able to prosecute here with our own laws and not have your office having our defendant plead to a lesser charge. You know, we have our own laws here. We want to prosecute. You have your own laws, federal. Prosecute them. Let's not plead down. If we're gonna prosecute, that's fine, but I still want you guys to prosecute federally.
Sure. Steph, the one jurisdiction prosecuting should have no effect on the other jurisdiction prosecuting. As you know, having been a federal agent working with us for many years, it's never a bar. And Scott and I have talked, actually he talks more to one of my colleagues, Megan Poppin, who's our chief prosecutor for violent crime on Pine Ridge. They talk frequently about that, and he has no problem with us, and of course, we encourage him to prosecute, because so far we think he's doing a great job, but anything we can do to help him in that manner, we will. But know that we never, I can't remember the last time we ever decreased a felony drug case to a misdemeanor. There's just no reason to do it. So even, as you say, if we plead it down, they're almost certainly going to federal prison. So know that we're not going to give anything away. But of course, you retain your right and ability to prosecute as well. But we'll make sure Scott understands that too. He was here, but he told us he had to run back to the office.
And just to maintain that open communication, because I know there's a lot of unanswered questions from the public with regard to the unsolved murders, with regard to the missing individual. We have several missing individuals that, you know, they have their own community meetings and they have no solutions. Nobody's coming to tell them what status it's at. And so here we are at Law and Order. You know, they come to Law and Order and ask us questions. And of course, the limited information that your offices can give out. You know, I understand that.
Right.
But the community doesn't. And the people that are missing are their loved ones.
Steph, you know that we will come anytime, any place to meet with families, and we have already, the Bureau has primarily, there are 2 missing persons that we're familiar with. One of them, we believe, went missing in Rapid City, the other down here. But I know from conversations with Joni and the ASAC, Bob Perry, who you all know, that those cases remain alive and open, and every single lead, she and I talked about it yesterday, every single lead is followed up on. But if there's ever a situation in which a family has come to you seeking an audience with us, we're a phone call away, Steph. And I say that to every one of you who know it. CJ caught me on a motorcycle in Utah last week when I'm riding. So we'll answer the calls. Right, CJ? So if you know we'll come down anytime, because it's probably a hardship for some of the folks to make it to Rapid. We'll come down and meet with them and tell them as much as we can.
And Steph, respectfully, we are actually trying to deal directly with the family and let them know what's going on.
Please come to the podium.
Sorry.
That's all right, it's being recorded, so, or broadcast.
Respectfully, all I'm saying is that we are trying to deal with the individual families. It's very hard in this era of social media that all of these other things get spun up. And as long as we feel like we're letting the families know what's going on, and in those cases, that's what we're doing, we can't necessarily counteract the entire social media piece. But by all means, if there's a family member that is not happy, that's why we have victim specialists also to try and meet some of their needs, get them into counseling if those are things that might be valuable to them.
Tina Merdanian.
First, I want to say thank you and welcome to the great Lakota Nation.
Thank
and
you.
with that being said, I want to switch gears a little bit because we're focusing on major crimes and always crimes against our people. But at the same time, we're looking and losing focus of the injustices that are being done to our people. And in the sense that there's laws that do not give us rights within the U.S. justice system when it comes to our land base, when it comes to our natural resources. And there is a grant that was given by the Indian Land Tenure to the Indian Law Resource Center. And what they're working on is the general principles of law. And it goes back to indigenous lands and resources. And I really want the state to also focus on our rights, our inherent rights in our Aboriginal territories that we feel we still have jurisdiction. And that within our courts, we should be able to prosecute these crimes within our courts of non-natives and to have that due process available through our courts. So when we look at prosecution, we want to be able to prosecute those people in our courts as well, especially when it comes to the violent crimes and looking at those crimes that those people have committed within our boundaries.
I am limited as to what I can say in terms of specific legislation. There's a law that prevents me from talking about legislation, endorsing it, or as in my role as U.S. Attorney. But I do want to assure you that those discussions are being had and heard, and we heard some of them last week in Sioux Falls at the government-to-government consultation. And at least the first good step that's been taken is the ability to prosecute non-Native Americans in tribal court for violence against women and children. And so the Violence Against Women Act is up for reauthorization. I'm prohibited by law from taking a position on whether it should or should not be, but I think anyone with common sense knows where that ought to go. But I thank you for the comment.
But you have an opinion.
I have an opinion. Deep down, I have an opinion.
There you go. That's all that matters.
But where is the tribe on TLOA compliance? Does anyone know? Has that application, I mean, you now have a chief judge who's been a lawyer for, I don't know how long Charlie's been around, longer than me, 40 years. You have a law-trained attorney running your AG's office. There are a number of defense attorneys working down here. I'm not sure what else is left for TLOA. compliance, which would give you increased penalty power, which this tribe
Stephanie Leisure.
ought to apply for.
You know, with the new AG coming aboard, there's still some questions that we have that the previous AG, we want to find out about what MOUs she had with the state. And I don't know if Stanley was aware of some of the stuff that was going on, but we haven't gotten that far yet with our new AG, and if he's found anything. And I know that she was deputized by your office.
No, not us, Steph. The Fall River County.
Fall River County. Okay,
Right.
so she didn't do your office.
No, she was not a
Okay.
special assistant with us.
Okay.
Frankly, it didn't happen, right?
Okay, so see, and that would be the next step for our AG to get that special commission with your office in order to follow the TLOA.
No.
No?
No.
Has that changed?
No, he doesn't need to be a special assistant.
Okay.
Sisseton is TLOA compliant.
Okay,
And so is Standing Rock. and
Okay.
that's not required. And,
Okay.
That, I think, would give the tribe a great deal of resource.
I think
And
that I would,
increased punishment power
Yep.
at a minimum, we know that, were you to get TLOA compliant. But with the chief judge in place and that prosecutor, boy, that's almost there. I mean,
yes,
something to think about.
yes. Thank you.
And one of the things to consider is once you reach that stage when you're TLOA compliant, you're one step away from the VAWA jurisdiction over non-Indians. All you would have to do is increase your jury.
Excuse me. For the record,
Troy Morley, Assistant United States Attorney, Tribal Liaison. Some people I know, some people I don't. So there's some new faces and old faces here. so.
secretaries are asking, be needed for the record.
Yes, sir, I understand. So all you would need to do is update the jury selection process, and then you would be VAWA compliant as well. So it's, the two steps kind of go hand in hand. And a few years ago, I did get the law school here in South Dakota, where they had their students who would rewrite tribal codes under the direction of your tribal attorney at no expense to the tribe. So if those are something you're looking at and you would like me to put you in touch with the law school, we can provide that avenue for you to get your codes updated. You just need to have your tribal attorney supervise the law students' work. But they do have the templates from Standing Rock and from Sisseton that they both used, because both Standing Rock and Sisseton are TLOA and VAWA compliant at this point and exercising that jurisdiction. Second thing, the handouts I gave you all. So that's relating to the Tribal Access Program, the TAP program. So there's 1 month left to get an application in. October 1st is the closing deadline.
This year.
For this year, and this year's expansion. Besides the NCIC access, the protection orders, the DV convictions, this is also a tool for your human resources to use in background checks, for your courts to use when you conduct background checks for emergency foster care placement. So there's other avenues, and your sex offender registration. So there's lots of avenues you can use on this, and in a meeting this morning with Vice President Black and a few others here in the tribe, the Chief of Police raised a concern that everybody's criminal information would get entered into this going back to time in memoriam. That's not true. You guys control the information you put in there. You control how far back it goes. I did check with Tracy Toulouse from the Office of Tribal Justice. Because one of the things that was expressed concern is if you have more than 3 DUIs, it's a felony under state law. And if we start entering tribal DUIs into this system, are people going to get felonies if they're in Rapid City? The answer is you don't have to put that information in there if you don't want to. It'll be up to the tribal council, and it'll be up to the courts on what information does go in there. You know, at a minimum, the DV information, there's a real gap when it comes to Indian country and federal databases. None of your tribal court DV convictions are in any system anywhere. So someone can be convicted down here for a domestic violence situation, then go to Rapid City and try to buy a gun. they can still get that gun because your DV conviction isn't in the federal database. But if they get caught and arrested by tribal police with that gun and tribal police know they have that DV conviction, it's still a federal offense. So this will prevent the unauthorized purchase of guns at a minimum and really avoid people ending up in that situation if that information is there and in the system. So October 1st is when the deadline is. I know, correct me if I'm wrong, Darla, you guys wanted a tribal resolution before we submitted the application.
I went to the VAWA conference in Sioux Falls last week, and I had met Troy there, and he mentioned this. And one of the things that I spoke about after meeting with the Attorney General, and first of all, he wanted the public defender position addressed, because with the VAWA, the protection orders, nobody is helping our people except the Victims Assistance Program. So that was one issue. And the other thing was, we heard, during all the testimony from the other tribes, we heard a lot of testimony concerning the missing and murdered women. So, and he told me he was coming here, he spoke about this, and I asked him to meet with all the entities that would benefit from this. So we had a meeting with the Chief of Police this morning, the Sex Offender Registry. What was the other programs?
The AG's office.
The Attorney General's office?
And did you have child and probation?
Yes.
CPS and probation.
Yes. So there was a meeting with them this morning, but when Chief Ecofee raised the concern about that information being shared, what I said was it would be up to the tribal council to decide. But using this kiosk, looking at missing and murdered, and the missing people that we have here, and sharing that information. So as the tribal council, you can utilize certain aspects of that, like they said with human resources, for the employee background checks, for one, and secondly, the domestic violence, because, you know, and I know you as elected officials hear a lot from some of these victims. I know I do. And I send them over to the Victims Assistance Program. But the biggest problem that we have there, and the Attorney General can reply to that, is that we need a public defender to defend them. And in meeting with the Assistant U.S. Attorney here, and what we talked about over there was there is money in that position. It's a one-time funding that's just sitting there. And BIA's concern was that money's going to run out. The time's going to run out on that. And so maybe that's one aspect you can look at. But I think you should review the document because it's really self-explanatory.
Sonia Weston.
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess I just want to say welcome to the new U.S. Attorney, Mr. Parsons.
Thank you.
And I guess I was just kind of been following up on your annual report, and always looking at the statistics of how and many offenses and how many crimes are happening across the state of South Dakota. And I know mainly ours, we're probably about 1% above the Rosebud Sioux tribe when it comes to offenses that are happening. And I just want to say that I also always wanted to know who is looking out for our indigenous women that are missing, especially when it's happening in Rapid City. And I just want to say that now that you brought to our attention this TAP program and how we can, make it flexible or work with it to making it so that we can access, certain records, or putting our records in there, whatever it may be. I really think that, to me, I really feel good that we can maybe work something out. I think our Law and Order Committee could probably address that with our Attorney General and work with our Chief of Police on maybe working out something there, because I think that it's important that we keep communication open and work together to try to make sure that we're looking out for our women that might Because we do have some that are missing from our reservation, and we always wanted to know and want to know, where are they? Are they being continuously, you know, are you looking for them? You know, is there something going on in Rapid City that is maybe bringing some assurance to the family that we are looking for your loved one? And so I'm just kind of throwing that out there. So I'm kind of glad to hear that. And I think that we can, you know, sit down through our committee and work with our chief of police and the attorney general to maybe look at the TAP program, since you said October 1 is the deadline. So I'm glad to hear that, you know, that they're offering, you know, that service to us. And so I think there's other trainings. I think that our public safety, our attorney general's office could maybe have access to Mr. The one with the tribal liaison.
Mr. Morley.
Yeah, Mr. Morley. Yeah, I met him maybe a couple years ago. But, you know, I know that he talked about the different technical assistance that he can provide to the tribes. So I'm really looking forward to see if maybe we can access those trainings, you know, here, you know, on our reservation to try to help our public safety and our courts and Attorney General's office. So just want to say that, and thank you for coming. I just want to welcome you, and also Mr. Peterman, you know, for making your way down here to give us a report. With that, I just want to say thank you.
Okay,
Thank you very
Stephanie
much.
Leisure, please.
Before you continue,
No,
President Weston?
no. Stephanie Leisure, please be recognized.
Okay.
I would just like to add that in all of the crime and everything that happens, my question to the council would be, in your thoughts, how are we helping to reduce recidivism? It's being reduced within the prisons when our people are sent to prison for a crime that they committed and they're prosecuted federally. But when we have something here locally, what are we doing to help our own people? What are we doing to help rehabilitate our people and living in society the way that it should be?
Secretary Parsons, Assistant U.S. Attorney.
Thank you for your comments. In my view, government-to-government cooperation is the best force multiplier we have. So the more we are cooperating as independent governments, but with a common goal of eradicating methamphetamine and violence from all of our communities, the better we will be. And I'm grateful for your consideration of the TAP program, because I think that's a step forward in my view.
Thank you.
Can I add something to her question? An answer?
After the Vice President. Okay.
I also want to add that this morning during that meeting with the chief of police and the attorney general, we talked about some of the things that are happening to our elders out there. Yesterday, and one of the elders, homeless elders, was assaulted by 4 boys who went by them and sprayed water on pop on them first. When one of them tried to stop him, told him to stop that, he stood up and the elder man got assaulted with a skateboard in the back of his head. So I talked with the chief of police about that this morning, the attorney general, and what the assistant U.S. attorney Morley offered is they could, what was that? Can you explain to them?
If I may speak, President? Thank you. What we discussed was there was some funding concerns for initiating this. One of the things we talked about is the department recently did a $105 million set aside. It was $105 million, right, Ron? Yeah. But that's victim witness service related. So if you're working with the elders, you would probably have to have 2 components to this, because the victim set-aside money cannot be used to fund an investigator. But the other people in the office, if they are specifically working with the elders, trying to help them get back on their feet, functioning as some sort of victim witness facilitator, that set-aside money could be used to fund that portion. Then you would just need to find a different revenue stream to fund the investigator, and we may be able to look into a COPS grant or something along those lines to fund the investigator side. So it would involve two different funding streams just because of the way the set-aside money has been allocated.
Okay. Greg Peterman.
Steph, you know, and I think everyone here probably knows, this business about recidivism is a serious business. We prosecuted dozens of tribal citizens last year for violating terms of release, both pretrial, but more often post-imprisonment. So they come right back to Pine Ridge, and they're on an average of 3 years of supervised release. And we prosecuted dozens of violations of terms of supervised release because of new assaults or new instances of intoxication in which there's damage done. I mean, we don't prosecute everyone who drinks a beer in violation of their probation, but there are instances in which we are not made aware of this behavior which violates conditions of release, so that an individual may commit a new offense down here and we're not made aware of it. What I would urge you to do is talk to the department which is responsible for the supervision of every single federal supervised release defendant on this reservation, and that's the U.S. Probation Office in Rapid City. Talk to them. Express your concerns with them. We do not supervise defendants. We prosecute defendants. They supervise their behavior, their living circumstances, their compliance with sex offender treatment, psychological treatment, educational issues. Maybe there's an issue where persons are committing behavior which are not being reported to the U.S. Attorney's Office. I don't know, but we are prosecuting dozens. A lot of that comes our way. All right, thanks.
Sonia Weston, and then Lydia Bearkeller.
Thank you. I just want to kind of touch on what Steph and what Mr. Peterman just discussed. You know, I know that on the state side, Greg, they do have a new grant that they are working to help that. You know, I do know that the state recently received a grant to help with, yeah, but it's for people that are in what we're talking about. How do we help them to not violate probation, to violate all these things and go back into the system again? You know, and I think on the federal side, we need to start looking at something like that.
Right.
You know,
well,
to help, you know, to help in a way that we can partner together. You know, partner with the, you know, working together to help our people so that they don't offend again. You know, we should be doing that, you know, so that they don't re-enter back into the system. You know, and I know that right now today, I reading, you know, just reading and hearing the news is that the state has a grant that they are working, but these are working with women that are entering prison, but when they're getting out, how do we keep them out of prison? How do we keep them out of prison? So right now you have people working, partnering with the state to, you know, work on different ways of helping them so that they don't go back into the prison system again. But you know, one thing to always remember is a lot of these inmates are our own people. When they come home, they might not have the support system that they need. They might not have a family support system, or they might not even have a support system because maybe even us as a tribe, we need to start looking at our programs to see how we can help our tribal members so that they can have something to fall back on when they come back. You know, so I'm just kind of throwing those out there. So there's got to be some ways of partnering with the federal side to help us with that, you know, so that we don't have our people re-entering back into the system.
Respond.
So the last sentence you just said, Sonia, re-enter. One thing we didn't mention here, right before Mr. Parsons became U.S. Attorney, we hired a guy named Dan Keevy as a re-entry coordinator. This is a program started at the tail end of the last administration. But this administration, and Ron Parsons in particular, have really taken the bull by the horns, and we have created, I mean, it's still a work in progress. We've been doing some experiments with it, a re-entry program. So it's true, we don't supervise at the U.S. Attorney's Office, probation does, But the DOJ and our office now in Rapid City, well, it's district-wide, but we're focusing a lot on Rapid City because I like West River. But anyway, Mr. Keevy is a reentry coordinator. He's putting together a program with state and local partners in Rapid City, and it's for Pine Ridge too. Don't think it's just Rapid City. That just happens to be where those partners are, to assist and aid federal defendants who are released back into the community on that supervised release term, 3 to 5 years. So I'm sorry I didn't mention that earlier, but I forgot to for a second there. But Keevy, by the way, comes here every Wednesday. He has an office every Wednesday on Pine Ridge from 9 to 3 that he mans, not just as a reentry person, but really just as a representative of our office. I think some of you have visited with him. Milton's over there every Wednesday. But anyway, Milton's always got something to talk about. But please, let me get Dan to come down and bring you some more information about that reentry program. I mean, it's a nationwide program. It's being well funded by this administration. Mr. Parsons has promoted it tirelessly since he's come on board. And I think it's going to be a real success. Dan used to work with veterans reentering community after combat because he's a combat vet. But we're doing something different here with him, and he's excited about it, and I think you ought to hear about it. So with your permission, let's try to work out an opportunity for Dan to come down. He's got a great presentation about reentry, and I think it'll address some of your concerns.
Lydia Bearkiller.
Okay, I know I met these gentlemen at the VAWA conference and the government-to-government consultation, but one of the things that I see is that when they say our numbers, you know, we have a shelter here that could house maybe 14, 16 women, families. But, you know, whenever the shelter is full, we're forced to run towards Rosebud, Huron, Mitchell, Rapid City, everywhere, you know, to place the women and children. The only grant that we had was a small grant that came through. And what I asked DOJ is, you know, with this, with the treaty obligation and the trust responsibility is to keep safe our women and children included. And so children, you know, we really need to look at the spin-off on all this that we're talking about and how it affects those children, and these children bringing this trauma, whatever, down into the school systems. So it's a whole circle of things that we have to look at. But the biggest thing I requested and I asked for these gentlemen's support is to look at DOJ and how their grants are given out, how their reporting requirements are. I think as tribes, we're really heavily regulated. It's red tape after red tape after red tape. But, you know, when crisis hits, and he should know about how big our reservation here is. And do we keep a woman laying there on a couch all beat up and not be able to transport because the funding says you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, you know? It really puts our people that are hurt and in this position, it makes it hard to make that decision and do it. And then when we make that decision, because we know best how to treat our people and what they really need. And that's what our programs do. However, whenever the reports go in, you know, we're pinned down word by word by word, you know? And so that's what I'm asking help for the Department of Justice to look at how the regulation is on Indian country versus, you know, those counties. The counties get the same amount of money. All they do is they spend it and then they make a report and they're done. But here on the reservation it's different. And so I asked DOJ and I asked these guys for their support, and all these federal monies coming in, especially like Wavy. Wavy houses women and children, supposedly. Okay, so when White Buffalo Cap is full, other shelters are full, we take them into Wavy. Wavy keeps them for like 2 or 3 days and they just kick them out. No place to go. It don't matter. They're just out the door. So then we're hustling, trying to find a safe place for women and children again. So it kind of has a big old impact on us where a small program like Sacred Child is doing here. But, you know, Great Plains has the program and they're struggling trying to get us funded, us looked at and meet our needs too, because like you said, DV, there's in tribal court, you know, they probably have the numbers there. Where does it go? The only time numbers show up is when it's in the Fed system or in the SAFE system. They could claim the numbers. We don't. So then when numbers and data comes with the funding, we're low on numbers. So it's kind of like on balance, it's imperative for our funding. So I just would like to make that comment, but I thank you guys for coming and that you agreed to help us, you know, and I'm gonna hold you to that. Thank you.
Yes, you may respond to that.
Thank you, and I would just say your voices were heard loud and clear by the Associate Attorney General and the Director of the Office of Violence Against Women, and Sherry Ann Moore, of course. That message was made very clear. Hundreds of voices have the same message, and so the right people have heard the message, and we'll have to hold them to act on it.
We have one more question, Austin Watkins, and then we'll close discussion.
It ain't no question. I just want to thank you guys for coming, but I also want to thank the police department of our reservation. You know, they are out there every day. Down Medicine Route, they did several drug busts, and I'm really proud of that. And the people out there have to understand that, you know, we're serious about this drug problem. You know, it's been hurting our people, it's hurting our elderly, and it's about time that, you know, the people step up to it. And I want to thank the ones that have been reporting it. But I want to thank Greg for being here. I don't know where you and CJ think it's something to be bald, but I guess, you know, that's your problem. But anyway, I want to thank you guys.
CJ?
Okay, thank you very, very much. Turn your microphone off, please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Okay. We are finished with our discussion, CJ. We are going to come back here later on.
I just wanted to ask them to remember our school and our school resource officers that we've been pushing issue for. If you could maybe put a good word in with the Department of Justice, because we did visit them this year, to remind them of our school resource officers and what a need we have for each of our schools down here.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Moving on. Cora Whitehorse.
Can we continue with this election?
I know everybody got up and left. Well, Stanley needs to be excused. We still have quorum. Okay, all right.
And the number 2 name needs to be stricken because he removed himself?
Yep. 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, we have to wait for recommendation from the chair.
As per the ordinance, I've read it. I looked at, that's why I was in the back there. I did meet with the executive director or the acting. I did not talk to him about it other than giving this as per the ordinance and the recommendations that I needed to make. And so I have 2 names that I'm going to have put up there because I felt that they were pretty equally qualified, and council can vote on yes or no on the 2 or 1, and we'll go like that. Number 2 can be stricken. Stephanie, number 2 can be stricken from the list. We got 15, 14, 12?
We have 13, 14, 15.
Okay. Based off of everything that I just discussed to you, that I am going to allow council to vote on, is I am recommending, if everybody would, I am recommending that you vote on, oh, are we back in? I call us back into session at 3 p.m. So based on what I was relaying earlier, I am recommending council pick applicant 3 or 4, and you vote on them.
Mr. Chairman,
C.J. Clifford.
you know, that probably should have made a better understanding initially from the start, and we interviewed 4 people, you know, and that was at the very last moment. It's not making it fair. We've always made an exceptions from this floor, and prior to this pick, so there was precedent set as far as that goes along. But I don't think that would be fair to the other 2 that is going to be not thought of also. So I would think that at this far into it, it's just not right to come back with, well, hey, all you're going to choose from is these 2 when we interviewed 4. Is that right to the people that interviewed? I just want to make mention of that. Thank you.
I have Cora Whitehorse, Richard Greenwald.
Thank you. Actually, according to the ordinance, the president has the authority to make the recommendations, and that was
Exactly.
what we asked for at the beginning of this process today.
Yes,
That
it
we
was.
interview all of them, that he make a recommendation, and we vote on that. And the reason that we interviewed all of them was so that if we had questions, we would be able to ask. That way we would have the same information that he had when we decided to make the decision.
Exactly.
So,
Richard Greenwald.
Chair, and I just wanted to reiterate what Cora said, and to add to that is one of the things that's kind of a fail-safe is that if neither one of them or none of them get 2/3, we re-advertise.
Exactly.
So there's a possibility that
Exactly.
neither one of them are selected. So.
Yep.
Once again, we're getting ready for the vote to select the chief of staff, which used to be called the executive director.
You vote for number 2 or number 3. And then we vote on whether or not by 2/3 of board. That's what it is.
and I have the resolution to appoint also.
Yes, okay. So vote either 2 or 3. Or they've changed it. They rewrote it here. So it will be 2 or 3.
So maybe to stop the confusion, cross out the other 2. That might help.
Right now, the council's deciding, the tribal president with the council, deciding on who should be voted on. There were 4 people who got interviewed.
For the record, Chair, I think you probably should state 2 and 3 by name, so that way you have it on record, because you haven't stated that yet.
Number 2 is Nicole Little White Man. Number 3 is Charles Puyer.
of the 4 people interviewed, Michelle Belt, Charles Pooyer, Nicole Little Whiteman, and Cherise Runnels. Tribal President has recommended voting on Charles Pooyer and Nicole Little Whiteman for the Chief of Staff position.
Did everybody submit their 5th member? Or you could do it right here too. Go ahead, you got the microphone. Okay, go ahead, proceed.
Oh, June.
What? That's a spoiled ballot. Okay, proceed.
Nikki Little White Man. Little White Man. Nicole Little White Man. Nicole Little White Man. It's a little white man. Nicole Little White Man. None. Nicole Little White Man. Charles Pooyer. Vote of no confidence. No vote. None of the above. C. Runnels. None. Nicole. Re-advertise. Re-advertise. Charles Pooyer.
Richard Greenwall.
Chair, you got the count there. We didn't meet 2/3 that motion to re-advertise the position.
We have a motion to re-advertise, seconded by Robin Tapio. Question, Lydia Bearkiller.
So out of the 2 that you presented to council, neither one got 2/3?
No.
Okay, so why don't we open it up to add the other 2 names on in the vote? Because they went through the process, they brought their applications, and
Well, that's up to council.
to re-advertise, it's gonna delay everything.
That is up to council. I have a motion on the floor that I have to recognize and a second. If we don't, we have a second. You have a motion to table to re-advertised. Is that right? Cora Whitehorse.
Thank you. This is why we did the whole process. We advertised. These were the only applicants who applied. It was advertised publicly and in the newspaper and on the website. So we got these applicants. We had one withdraw. The president made his recommendation. And out of courtesy to the president, we should, be professional and vote on his recommendations rather than trying to circumvent the whole process. We're always talking about policies. We're always talking about following processes, but we don't do it ourselves. And if the president made a recommendation, we should be courteous enough to his office that we go with either one of his recommendations. That's all I have to say. We'll have to start this process over, and it's a waste of time.
We have a motion on the floor to re-advertise. With the second by Robin Tapio. Call for the vote.
Blaine Little Thunder.
Yeah.
Jim Meeks. No. Cora Whitehorse.
No.
Stanley Lil White Man. Austin Watkins. Chancey Wilson.
No.
Stephanie Leisure.
No.
Valentina Merdanian. Lydia Bearkiller.
No.
James Cross.
No.
Ella Giancarlo.
Yes.
Richard Greenwald.
Yes.
Robin Tapio. Philip Goodcrow.
Yeah.
David Puyer. Sonia Lilhawk Weston. Jackie Sears. Colin C.J. Clifford. Craig Dillon.
Sonia Weston.
I think that, to me, I think we did follow the ordinance. We gave the president the go-ahead to recommend to the council, which we did follow the ordinance, and he did make his recommendations, but I'm sorry to say they didn't make the 2/3. And the ordinance does state that it has to be 2/3 by the tribal council. So we did follow that.
No, wait.
But
we didn't, we did a vote of my recommendations.
yeah, your recommendations.
But then the highest vote now, we vote on. So next we vote on that highest vote getter to get that 2/3. And if that doesn't pass, if that fails, then we can go and re-advertise.
Okay, and that's number
So here's
two?
Here's the selection of chief of staff. 7 motion to re-advertise failed, 7 yes, 10 no, and 1 not voting. That's what the vote was right now. Okay, Cora Whitehorse.
Did you want me to read the resolution with the person who got the highest number of votes and 2/3 that?
Lydia Bearkiller.
Okay, so I think we need that opinion, because I understand that when we vote on a decision like this, it's the highest vote getter that the council has to approve by 2/3 vote. And we have done it with the chief of police. We have done it with the other, candidates that came in front of us. So see, they're saying this didn't make 2/3, but this should not have been a 2/3 issue. It's the highest vote getter. Yes. So that's what we need to do.
The selection that is made off of that vote will be voted on to get a 2/3 to be selected officially. Get your bucket ready. It's a yes or no vote to select number 2, the highest vote getter.
You gotta vote
we're going to vote on this. So we need a 2/3 vote. And we have 19 in the room, so we need,
Can we have an open hand vote or a roll call vote on this one? Why not? Because it's either a yes or no.
they're being handed out right now. So we need a vote of 13 to get 2/3 of 19 to have the selection be official. Yes? Yes or no? Dave, yes or no to approve that? That's all that is. Do you want that selection right there or no? Yes or no? Okay.
The council and the tribal president are working to follow the ordinance that is setting up the chief of staff's office. The 4 candidates were interviewed: Michelle Belt, Charles Puyer, Nicole Little Whiteman, Cherise Runnels. Of those, there were all 4 interviewed. Then the tribal president made a recommendation to have the vote be between Charles Puyer and Nicole Little Whiteman. When the vote was made, there was 8 for Nicole Little Whiteman, 2 for Charles Puyer, 1 for Cherise Runnels, and 7 who voted to re-advertise.
No. No. Yes. No. Yes. No. No. Yes. No. Yes. Yes. No. Yes. No. Yes. No. No.
That's right. That's right. One not voting. 2, there is not a 2/3. You needed 13 off of 9. 13 is the 2/3 for 19. Do you want an extra vote? It don't matter if his vote didn't matter anyway. Really, because we needed 13, and if it was yes, it would only meant to 8. So it really wouldn't have mattered anyway. So we are at a stalemate. There was a motion to table and our motion to re-advertise, which failed. So we voted for the 2/3 for the process, to follow the process, and that failed. Yes, you may do your motion to re-advertise. And the second by Robin Tapio. Again.
Blaine Little Thunder.
Yeah.
Jim Meeks.
No.
Cora Whitehorse.
No.
Stanley Little Whiteman. Austin Watkins. Chancey Wilson.
No.
Stephanie Leisure,
Yes.
Valentina Mardanian,
Oha.
Lydia Bearkiller, James Cross, Ella Giancarlo,
Yes.
Richard Greenwell,
Yes.
Robin Tapio,
Yes.
Philip Goodcrow,
Yeah.
David Puyer, Sonia Lilhawk Weston,
Ha.
Jackie Sears,
Oha.
Colin C.J. Clifford,
Yeah.
Craig Dillon,
Motion to re-advertise, 9 yes, 8 no, 2 not voting. Okay? We move on. Collins Clifford.
Just like to make a comment that, just the way things happened here, I'd like to apologize to all 4 of them candidates that did apply. Personally, from my point of view, I don't apologize for anybody's else's actions. But you're pretty much just told these 4 people you're not going to be selected in the future, so there's no sense in applying the way that this process just worked. So how do you be fair to our people out there when you've run a process in such a fashion that 2 of them people now puts in a category where they're not going to be selected at all? Because they wasn't selected even at the beginning of the first choice. How do you treat our people fair in job selections when you can come off the table just like that and decide and all of a sudden make, well, I read the ordinance this way, well, I'm reading it this way. Well, you know something, them 4 people all were very good candidates. I thought they all gave a good interview. It would have been a good selection to look at all 4 of them. But at this point in time, you've sent a word out, not only to them, but to our reservation, that these 4 candidates are not good enough to work for our tribe. I just wanted to share that with you guys because I feel bad for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. AT&T. Who's here from AT&T?
So good afternoon, Chairman. My name's Juanita Brown. And Council, it's good to be here again. I am Assistant Vice President for AT&T's External Affairs Organization. And I have with me here today Cindy Gallagher. And I'd just like to point Cindy out for you. This is Cindy. Cindy is also in my organization and is supporting my work here on the reservation. As many of you know, I was gone for a little while, and I am back now. I know that we have not been out here for a year. In fact, when I looked it up, it will be a year ago tomorrow since the last time that AT&T was here to visit. I did want you all to recognize, though, that we did attempt to come in April. However, when we got to Rapid City, it wasn't me, it was others that were filling in for me because I couldn't travel at that point. But they did make the trip. Your meeting was canceled due to a death on the tribe, and so we didn't get a visit. So again, I'm glad to be here today. I have a laundry list of things to talk to you about because it has been a long time. And so I kind of like to just give you what I have on my list of what I think might be good to visit about. And then if there are others, or if you don't want me to cover something, please let me know, because I know you guys have been here a long time and I don't want to waste your time, okay? So first, I'd like to maybe start today's session by asking John Canis to come up and just give a quick overview of what has transpired in the world of telecommunications on the reservation and how we got to where we are today. Just to kind of level those into us so we can help you understand and answer those questions so that we can begin working again together. And so that's kind of my laundry list, and if that's acceptable, President Stu, I would like to ask John to come up first and maybe give that quick overview, okay?
Thank you, Juanita. Mr. Chairman, members of the Tribal Council, thanks for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is John Canis. I am a regulatory attorney from DC, specializing in telecom. I've had the pleasure of serving as the pro bono Telecom Counsel to the Oglala Sioux tribe for about 10 years now. The reason I particularly wanted to talk today was the Land Committee yesterday, Mr. Wilson and Mr. Cross had questions about fees and payments that AT&T might make under our service agreement. And there have been different types of agreements in the past, and I thought this was a good opportunity to address all of those. Those questions were referred to today's Tribal Council meeting. So let me just take a few minutes. It's a short history, but I think it'll put a lot of stuff in perspective. Cellular service was first brought to this reservation in the year 2000 by Western Wireless. Western Wireless came in. The reason it was able to do this economically, it was the first carrier that could actually build out cell networks and provide cell service on Pine Ridge. It did this because it convinced the Federal Communications Commission to make a universal service subsidy fund called the High Cost USF Fund available for the first time. And it was a big deal. It amounted to $3 to $4 million a year to provide service. And that paid for Western Wireless building out its network. And it continued to make those $3 to $4 million a year. In providing service to the tribe, it negotiated a service agreement called the Tate Woglika Service Agreement that was negotiated by Joe Red Cloud and Western Wireless. Now, over the next, it didn't have a payment plan per se from AT&T to the tribe, but it had kind of a revenue sharing plan. So under Tate Woglika, I think it was every year, might have been every 6 months, they looked at all the revenues made from sales of cellular service, and Western Wireless paid the tribe a percent of that. And I don't know what the percent was. It wasn't a big percent, but it was a percent of those general revenues. That stayed in place. That Tate Woglika Service Agreement stayed in place for 10 years. Western Wireless sold out to Alltel, but Alltel adopted that contract. Alltel later sold out to Verizon. Verizon adopted that contract. Relations between the tribe and Alltel and Verizon were not as good as Western Wireless, and there were a lot of questions raised as to how were you computing that payment, that revenue share? Was it being adequately made to the tribe? And there were a lot of open questions about that. Now, in 2011, Verizon was required by the federal government to sell its network on Pine Ridge, and it chose to sell it to AT&T. That's when I was introduced to the tribe and began representing the tribe in both litigation and negotiations with AT&T. There were a lot of questions. There were litigation in federal court, tribal court, the Federal Communications Commission, and we started a process of 10 months of negotiating a service agreement with AT&T. We had to do this because Tate Woglika no longer applied because it wasn't one carrier buying out another carrier. This was a brand new carrier that wasn't a party to that agreement. So we had to come up with a new agreement. Joe Red Cloud led those negotiations and I assisted him. It took 10 months. Juanita Brown led the team for AT&T. And at the end of the day, we reached a service agreement that we believed would be amenable to the tribe. It provided for a flat fee payment, $70,000 a month. This is about roughly $800,000 a year. 3-year contract would have been about $2.4 million. Now, at that time, remember, it started out in 2000. The High Cost Universal Service Fund was about $4 million a year. It was a lot of money. The FCC then changed the rules and started reducing that amount. By the time we negotiated the agreement, it was down to about half of that. So that was the deal. In 2012, we brought that contract, it was fully negotiated, we brought it to the tribal council for, to explain it and for the tribal council to vote on it. The tribal council chose not to. At that point, there was a lawyer who works for the firm sometimes, for the tribe sometimes, got up and said, hey, it's a bad deal, don't sign it, I can negotiate a much better deal for you. And it was a tribal council's decision not to adopt the new, we call it Tate Woglika II agreement, and so that was never enacted. It turns out later on, the other group never really negotiated a thing. It kind of dropped the proposal, and no new contract was ever adopted by the tribe. What happened at that point is AT&T continued to provide service, but without a contract. So now fast forward another few years. It's 2015. The then president of the tribe called me up and said, you know, we've got service on the tribe, but we have no visibility into it. We don't know, it's not person to a contract. We haven't really talked to AT&T. We don't know the terms under which it's happening. We want to negotiate a new contract. So we started that process, and I was lead negotiator for the tribe this time. Again, Juanita Brown led the team at AT&T, and this time negotiations took about 6 months. But something fundamentally was different by this time. The FCC changed those rules again and basically eliminated the high-cost universal service fund. So that $4 million was later $2 million, it's gone. Right? The FCC did away with that. So, and it was replaced by a new service, subsidy called the Lifeline service. And that is $34.25 per month per customer. And so we were faced with a choice at that time. We said, look, that's not a lot of money, not compared to the old high-cost service. We could have a little bit of money paid to the tribe. But I said, you know, it would probably be better and provide more value to the tribe if we took all of that Lifeline subsidy and put it into service and see how much service we could provide for free to the greatest number of members of the Oyate on Pine Ridge. We discussed that with the administration. We discussed that with the Economic and Business Development Committee. We got buy-off on that process, and that was the ultimate negotiation position, and that was ultimately adopted by AT&T. So in 2016, we came to an agreement with AT&T, what's called the Lifeline Service Agreement. And you've seen that. We have copies that are now available. I didn't have a signed copy myself, but copies are available for those who want to see it. We've made multiple presentations. It was adopted by the Tribal Council by unanimous vote. And that has been in place now for 2 years. It was very successful. There were over 3,000 Pine Ridge residents who signed up for this service. And again, it's a state-of-the-art service for free, full-featured smartphone. In my understanding, it's been very, very popular. I've presented to the Tribal Council in the past, there are FCC rules that require the people who take the service to recertify, and it's a hard process, and we've lost a lot of the subscribers doing that. I've been working with the tribe. President Weston came down and talked to the FCC, met with Chairman Ajit Pai there. And I think we're going to get a fix to that solution, to that situation by the end of the year. And then we can redouble our efforts and try to re-sign up those people we lost and maybe even sign up some more. That's the goal. But this new agreement negotiated in 2015 and in effect since 2016 never included any cash payments to the tribe. That was replaced by a focus of maximizing the amount of subsidies, Lifeline service subsidies that are available to give the greatest amount of service for free to the greatest number of the Pine Ridge Oyate. So that's the status of the service agreement. I have one other contract that I'd just like to mention very, very quickly. And this is the master service agreement by which AT&T leases land to build cell towers. That was never part of either the Tate Wogla agreement or the new Lifeline service agreement. It was always a separate agreement. You have before you now a resolution to approve terms that would be used to negotiate a new agreement with a new rate that was approved by BIA following a BIA audit. A tribal council resolution is necessary to start that process to negotiate a contract. After that contract is done, it has to be approved by the BIA, and then will be presented to the tribal council again for a final vote and final adoption. But in my view, it's very important that we proceed on this as quickly as possible. And the reason is, as Juanita is going to tell you, AT&T is going to be putting up 3 new towers, and that's going to have a dramatically positive effect on service. It's going to increase the number of towers by 1/3 on this reservation, and it's really going to have a positive impact on service. But we have to have this master lease agreement in place for that to happen. So that's the focus of the resolution in front of you today. And thank you for your patience. I wanted to give you that quick overview of where we are, and if there are any questions or comments, I do my best to address them.
Questions? Philip Goodcrow.
One question, where are the 3 towers going to be located?
Mr. Goodrow, for that, I'll pass it over to Juanita Brown and also Caroline Herron, who has been working with AT&T to look at maps of the reservation, and so they have all the details on that. All right, well, thank you for your time, Mr. Chairman. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, please.
All right, so I will cover what I was going to cover last as my best news for you first. So we actually,
Hold on, let's answer Philip's first. Okay.
So I just need to correct one thing. We would like to build 4 new towers, okay? And the 4 towers, and I'll just give you the areas we're looking at. The red shirt area by the casino, Martin, and Sharp's Corner. Those were the next steps that we would like to take in building our infrastructure. And that's what we will need, these lease agreements that John's talking about. The resolution that's before you is based upon the appraisal that the BIA has done. And AT&T supports what's in that resolution. We agree with the escalator, the 10% for every 5 years. We think it's a very good process because one of the problems that we have had here on the reservation is obtaining the approvals we need to build our infrastructure. I know everyone wants service everywhere, but we can't build until we have your approval first, and then we need to obtain the BIA approval. And so this resolution really will help us chart a path forward where we've got a prototype because it sets forth, okay, this is the rate, we're gonna pay this rate, the same rate for all of our towers. Every 5 years, that rate's gonna go up automatically 10%, and it just keeps going. It's a standardized process which will help eliminate some of the problems that we've had in obtaining the approvals to build infrastructure. Now I went a little further than your question, but
okay. Question for John. Tina Merdani.
Okay. I'm sorry, I missed the first part. You said your role was what for the tribe?
I'm pro bono telecom counsel. So my little quick bio here. I started out of law school as a staff attorney with the Federal Communications Commission from 1984 to 1987. I've been in private practice ever since then. Since that time, about 90% of what I do is telecommunications. and it's litigation, transactional, and most recently I was a partner with the law firm Aaron Fox in Washington, D.C.
So, not on that note, but what you mentioned about the Lifeline. Now, a majority of our elders receive Medicare, but as part of the certification, they have to have Medicaid and not Medicare. Why can't our elders use Medicaid for that certification? Medicare, I'm sorry.
Sure. Long story short, the Lifeline program is prescribed by Congress, and they approved a number of different federal and tribal programs that if you qualify for those, you automatically qualify for this Lifeline telephone subsidy. So they include Head Start, food distribution program, Medicaid, BIA supplemental. Hey, Juanita has more.
So, as John was saying, there are many ways to qualify for Lifeline. They are federally regulated, but you know, if you have a tribal elder who is on
Medicare.
needs your the tribal food program is in low income, the income threshold by itself will qualify them, and so. There aren't many tribal elders that we have seen come in that we've had a problem qualifying because of the Medicare versus Medicaid issue. But if there is someone, let us know, because we work with our potential customers to help qualify them to, you know, make sure, okay, well, if it's not this, then is it this? And there's about 12 different programs that almost everyone on the reservation would qualify for Lifeline. Now, we do have to have proof when they come in, but let us work with them.
And can I just add one thing to that? And Ms. Badanian, this is an issue that's really, really important now, because we had 3,000 people sign up for the service, and a year later, we lost almost half of them, and that's because the FCC has these rules and they're inflexible, and you must recertify. Basically, you have to confirm that, yes, I'm still poor and I still qualify for this service, and you have to do it every year, and they have a very narrowly prescribed way to do that. President Weston and I and Steve Puyer went down and talked with Chairman Pai of the FCC and said, look, waive those rules and let us put those people back on. By the time we got to them, they were out and we couldn't turn them back up. But we're very focused now on putting together a new system where we could have other tribal members help people sign up so we won't have this kind of drop-off. I believe we're making progress on that. We're talking about this about every month. We meet with the FCC or another federal agency or members of the tribal programs that qualify people. And I think I'm confident that by the end of this year, we'll have a program that the FCC will adopt. Once we do that, we'll fix this drop-off problem and then just can really focus on signing up new people, and we know we'll be able to retain them. So that we're very focused on that.
And one addition on that, even when a customer drops off, they may come in and reapply at any time. So if someone has lost their Lifeline service because they didn't go through the recertification process, please encourage them to come back in, contact us so that we can get them back on. And once they're back on, our hope is that John's process that he's working on will then help as they are due the next year to recertify to keep them on the system. And so please encourage them to come back if they've dropped off.
Okay.
So I still have the floor. Next question. And the reason I wanted clarification, and thank you for that background about being Telecom Council, is that in representing the tribe, of course, you're doing the research and the homework on regards to cell tower zoning, cell tower ring zones and so forth, and do you have an idea in regards to Indian country and looking at, you know, the lease agreements and so forth, because the average for cell tower lease agreements within the nation, and especially in the Midwest, is around 1,300 per cell tower. So that is just the industry average, okay? Now, it could go much higher based upon that research and the ring zones. So with that, as you represent us as a tribal nation, were you afforded that information?
No, I was never involved in the master lease agreement or the tower lease agreements. That was always handled, originally that was negotiated by the Economic Development Committee office, and I never had any involvement in that process. Now, I can give you my 2 cents, all right? And again, this is, there are places in Manhattan where cell towers rent for $20,000 a month. It's crazy, right? But not out in rural areas. I have a client, a telecom client in Iowa that puts up towers. It provides its own service. Many of its towers it puts up to, it doesn't receive, pay any fee at all. It just provides free service to the landowners. So all I can tell you, and especially in very rural areas like Pine Ridge, there's no demand, there's no competition. You don't have people trying to, you know, tripping over the cell saying, I want that tower, because there's no demand for it out here. So BIA hired a consultant to do a review of prices in the area. They came up with 6,600. I have not conducted my own study. I'm really not you'd need an economist for that, so that's beyond my pay grade anyway. But from what I know from my clients in the area, that's in the ballpark. But those are my 2 cents, and otherwise I'm not formally involved in that process for the tribe.
President Weston, could I address that also with, and the only thing I'd like to help the Tribal Council understand is, I have with me right now the BIA appraisal, and I just talked to Patty and asked if it'd be okay if I just shared. I wanted to just read 2 of the findings on this topic to help the council. So the finding that says the initial lease rate of $500 per month or $6,000 annually set in 2009 may be above market levels if it was set today. It is at least in the upper range of value based on available comparable data. No adjustment of the base rate up or down could be supported within available market data. And so for this market, our rate is really at the higher level. And then what he goes on to suggest is the 10% every 5-year increase. And we're willing to live with that. So I thought it was important to understand that the rates that we're paying today for Pine Ridge are not low. In fact, they're at the very high range, and now they're going to go higher than the high range with what's being proposed under the resolution.
So to continue off of that, what you said is it may be on the high range in regards to the lease, but are you deriving other income from these towers?
So I think that might go to the issue that was raised yesterday with Verizon being on our towers. There is much information that we don't have to present today on that issue, but this is what I would like to propose on the Verizon tower issue, is I would like for John and I to work together to pull together the total facts of what we're doing on that, what Verizon is paying to the tribe for being on our towers, because they are making payments, but we need to validate facts and then present them. And I don't know if we come back to council to present, if we go to economic and business development and land to present, whatever your desire is, let us get the facts, come back to you, and then help you understand what is actually going on, because I know there's been a lot of debate, and we don't all have the facts yet. So that would be my proposal. I don't have an answer to your direct question, but I want to investigate it after it came up yesterday.
I believe that question was posed the last time you were at council.
No, not on Verizon. I've never been
On
asked
the
that.
income, the total income, remember that? The total income that was derived from everything that was on them towers, from AT&T and for whatever Verizon, whomever. I got Blaine and then Davey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know with the cell tower that's putting out the additional towers, you said there's one going to be in Martin. Whereabouts towards the Martin, outside of town of Martin, north, south, east, west? Which direction? Because our cell tower out there, pretty bad reception. I usually come through Highway 44, 73, and 18, and I can't get no cell tower out that way. And also probably Jim, or my other council guy, he gets on a horseback, gets on a hill. That's only gets a cell tower response. So that's my question, to see where that tower is going to be going up to the Martin area.
So the Martin Tower, we do not have a specific site yet. We are working with the land office to find tribal land that we could use to have that tower. What I do know is we are calling it Martin East, and so today our service reaches right into Martin, and then like you said, it's not very good. And so it's east of Martin, but I don't know the specific area because we've got a search ring that we're trying to find tribal land that we could come then back to the tribe to ask permission to be on. And we're working with the land office on that issue.
Okay, if that tower can go up in that direction, which I mentioned, up northeast of there, somewhere there that we're can have better reception, from there, Wombly, that's a road area way out there in the furthest of the reservation where communication is lacking. And even I used to be on a police officer, and then it was pretty hard to get radio contact also. I can call to the dispatch, we don't get the communication going, so we have to get on High Hill to get that communication. Same way with the cell towers, We don't have cell towers out there, so we can't get the reception out there. So we can get a cell tower out northeast there somewhere where we can get better reception for that tower out there. And I know you said there was, I know you came here a while back, but the other company would be Verizon. They should be here at the table, one-on-one, and then I was back on 98, 2000 when this for Western Wireless, when it first came about, we negotiated with that, and we didn't have this cell phones back then, way back in the days, but cell tower, the phones ever since they were just like big phones where you can hold your hand and flip phones or bags. I'm glad that we have the cell towers now with ruled out in the area here that we need that phone reception too, especially with the any emergency that we have with the ambulance service and also with the police department that we need to contact them and communicate better. We rely on those phones so we can get them contact to also with the 911, that phone service that we need to make it a lot quicker to better response for our people to get services to emergency situations. So I just want to throw that out to see if Verizon can be here also till we can negotiate with this. So that's my comment. Thank you.
I would, as far as the Verizon, the tribe would have to work on getting Verizon here.
David Poyer.
Mr. Chairman, I guess what we have to work out, and Verizon seems to be on some of the towers. Are they on all the towers presently?
No, they are only on some of them.
And then who else is on?
Other than us, and then there are, It's been a while, and I don't remember which ones, but I know that there is some of the Oglala Sioux water, something to do with your water system is on some of them.
Phone companies.
Oh, no other phone companies.
Okay, but the thing is that we have to work out is the subleasing of whoever's got the towers, subleasing to Verizon, which are AT&T towers, and that's what we need to try and work out with realty so that everybody's not nobody's in violation, I guess. That's what we're trying to figure out here. Because what's going on is you're subleasing tower space to Verizon, right? Somebody is.
We have approved, we thought we had approval from the tribe to allow Verizon to be on our towers. Verizon is making payments to the utilities office for being on these towers. That's something I just learned just last night, and that's why I'm saying there is much information that I don't know if we've got it all, and that's why when I learned of that last night, I didn't know that, but I'm not involved in what happens between Verizon and the Oglala Sioux tribe. I can only speak on behalf of what's going on with AT&T.
Well, see, that's why, we're not, myself, I didn't know that there was
I didn't either.
A sublease going on. I don't know who else did. But for the Bureau then, is there record of that through your office? See, that's the thing is we have to be in compliance at realty on these leases because someplace there's a lease being entered into that the tribe's that we're not aware of, and trying to get this thing into compliance. That's why the land committee really didn't deal with it yesterday and refer, because this was all going to come up here today. So we need to somehow work this out, or I don't know if we're going to work it out here in the council meeting, but our attorneys are going to have to work this out so that everybody is in compliance with this lease.
John Canis.
Mr. Puryear, I agree, and this resolution and coming up with a new master lease agreement from scratch is a great way for us to pull all this together. As Winnie just said, we just found out recently that Verizon has been making payments to the tribe. Steve Puryear has been doing a great job. He did an audit and just found copies of these payments that have been made. But all this just happened recently, which is why Juanita's saying, let us get together. We're working with Steve on this to put together a full report. We'll go back and do as much retroactive accounting as we can to show, what, who paid what to who, but most importantly, we now have the opportunity to come up with a brand new master lease that everybody knows what the terms are, and we can start that from scratch. Well, Juanita may have a different view of this, but.
I only whispered in John's ear that the resolution before you, and from our perspective, we have a master lease. And really what's being modified, what we're asking is the modification is the language in the master lease today requires an appraisal from the BIA. In 2014, AT&T filed paperwork to extend for another 5 years our existing leases. We have waited until right now to be before council to get those appraisals and ask for your approval. So once your approval is given through this resolution, then we can sit down with the land office, draft up the lease paperwork amendments that would reflect that instead of having every 5 years to wait 4 years for us to pay you the additional dollars, that it's automatically going to happen every 5 years. If we renew, our rent's going up 10%.
And make adjustments for better service.
Well, that provides the path forward for us to do better
That's
service.
what I'm saying.
Yes.
That needs to be added in that agreement, amended into that agreement.
what I will say is we have wanted to make improvements on your lands for many, many years. The leasing process, the process John said, you know, we were precluded. We came here many times asking for assistance so we could have the towers that we want to build today built 5-6 years ago. We couldn't get approval. And so what I've been working on is to find a path where we can build, and as we can get funding dollars to build new towers. We've got 4, we've got the money now, we've got them approved internally. So I'm asking for your help to get us so we can get them deployed so that once again, like we were 5-6 years ago when we came, we couldn't get approval. Those funds were deployed elsewhere because we couldn't get the tribe's approval to do what you guys are asking us to do. And so this resolution really allows us, as we are able to get these 4 in, then we'll look to the future to get more in, right? We know that that isn't what we're gonna end with, but we've got to get the existing. We need to pay for the existing because we're coming up on another 5-year renewal. And then this gives us that path forward. And that's what we're looking for, is assistance on a path forward to give you the services you're asking for. But if we can't get your approval to deploy these towers, then we can't do it.
John Long.
Good afternoon. I just want to make sure, for those of you who don't know, and point out the OAS that conducted the appraisal for that. That's just a minimum price that was done. So the tribe has the right to negotiate whatever rate above or below that appraisal value.
Chancey Wilson.
Good afternoon. I got a question that was raised yesterday in Land Committee about maybe the tribe doesn't have a legal binding contract with AT&T because another individual had signed instead of either the former president of the tribe or Mr. Weston. Neither president had signed in the last several years. Is that the same contract? I'm thinking we don't have a contract at all because it doesn't have a legal binding signature.
So let me try to clarify that. What we were referring to yesterday was the documents that we sent the tribe to obtain approval to allow Verizon to co-locate on our towers. That's separate and apart from our leases and from the service agreement that John talked about that we entered into with the tribe in 2016. And then again this year we sent a letter saying yes, we want to continue with that. So there's multiple agreements, and I know it's confusing.
James Cross, please clarify everything.
Well, I think she did. Her and John did clarify this master agreement, and then President Steele at the time signed the last agreement. And so I think we're good on that part with the agreement, but I just wanted to make a motion to approve this resolution.
We have a motion to approve this resolution. Do we have the resolution in place? We have, we had a second, but the secretary has some questions, and then I'll recognize you two in the back. But before we do that, if you would go through and ask your questions.
There's several areas here that's not clear. And I did ask, because of the blank spots in here, to ask my staff to bring the minutes for the EBD and land, because we don't have them attached. And EBD met on 8/17. And the land committee secretary said land didn't approve this. Committee wanted it taken to tribal council to discuss. So there's a portion in here that says that they did meet and approved it. On page 2, on the whereas, in that sentence, it just says to the BIA and the Oglala Sioux tribe for a comma, and then followed up with inquiries. Is that incomplete section there? But I don't know. Are they gonna, who's
So
reading this?
I think that's a typographical error as I read
Is this gonna
it.
be read, or I'd like to see if we could get it read for the record.
Before we read that, I recognize CJ, Robin, Dave, and Tina. CJ.
Mr. Chair, Miss AT&T. Okay, as I read this, the annual rent will increase by 10% upon renewal for each succeeding renewal term. I would respectfully ask that you allow us to put a negotiation clause rather than sticking us with the automatic 10% comes 2024 or 2025. But it be a negotiable thing for our tribal representatives to actually sit down and negotiate a price with you, other than being written in on a minimum, or we could say a minimum of 10%, but the negotiation could be higher, just based for business and respect to our sovereign.
So could I maybe ask the BIA a question? Because a lot of my understanding, and I could be wrong, and I'd like Patty's advice on this, but my understanding is that under the law that we can do one of two things. We can have an appraisal every 5 years, or we can do this escalator. I don't know under the federal law that governs this whether we can do that or not. So I'm not in a position today to say yes or no to that request, but I think it needs some legal research is what I would say before we could actually take that under consideration.
I know. I do believe that the law allows our tribe to negotiate when it comes to doing business. So I only thought about it after I read it. So.
Well, Mr. Clerk, just my 2 cents on this. The Tribal Council is going to have another bite at the apple on this because it has to approve the final contract. So we can talk about that. We can get advice from the EMBDC as we negotiate the actual terms for this amendment. But I just would mention this. A 10% escalator is really good. You hardly ever see that. It's usually maybe you get a 1-2% escalator. But anyway, just FYI, but something like you're talking about, an either or, something that opens the possibility for negotiation if the parties agree, nothing wrong with that, I think.
That's right, and I did, if you listened, I said we'll leave the 10% in there in the case that we can negotiate a higher dollar. So.
Patty Yellow Boy.
I just wanted to mention that when we do appraisals, it's for benefit of the landowner, and the landowner has the right, we just set the minimums. We tell you what's high, what's low. You guys as landowners and landowners anywhere have that opportunity to negotiate and come to an agreement with the person you're leasing with. So that's not saying this is what you have to accept, this is how high you can go. We're not saying that, we're just setting a minimum for you.
Robin Tapio.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to volunteer to read the resolution. Thank you.
Duly recognized when we get to that point. Okay. Dave Poyer. Well, we have Tina, and then we'll go to the resolution.
Miss Juanita, I do appreciate you being here and trying to answer our questions and not being aware of all of the issues that we've had questions about in regards to this contract as well. However, I feel that it's important that we do our investigation as well. And in that being said, that, looking at the industry standards, yes, the escalator is about on an average 2%. We know that on an average in 2016, the average lease for new sites is $1,300 a month. And so with that, that turns out to $15,600 per site annually. And with that being said, BIA also needs to consult with the tribe in regards to our business agreements when we look at the leases. Now, also wondering, are these leases on tribal land, or are they on lotted land? So that's my other question that I have with the BIA when looking at this master lease agreement.
So to answer your question on, our 7 leases are on tribal lands. These 7 leases that we're talking about right now are on tribal lands that this resolution would apply to.
Okay, what I was gonna say is there's actually one on an allotted land. And when you negotiate leases, a lot of the times, you guys do resolutions and you do leases, but they don't come to our office. And so we can't enforce them until we actually sign them on behalf of the Department of the Secretary, and that would be the superintendent or whoever's acting in that position. But a lot of the times we don't see this stuff. So there's decisions made on leases. We can't enforce them because we don't have any input on them, and we can't follow any CFR regulations if we never see them, and we can't approve them. So like you said, there was an agreement between Verizon and the council at the time, or whoever at the time, we've never seen that. So we can't enforce any of our regulations because we didn't have any input on it. So we don't see any of that. So when you guys have situations that come up where you have a disagreement and we can't help enforce our laws on those leases because we weren't informed about them. Do you know what I mean? Okay, so just so you know, it's better to run leases through us so we can incorporate our CFR regulations on them and make sure that we're following all those CFR regulations and making sure payments are made, and we can enforce lease violations with them. That's it.
Okay.
Could I augment, because I misunderstood the question. I thought when the question was asked by Councilwoman that she was referring to the resolution, and it is true, the 7 leases that would be governed by this are on tribal lands. We do have other leases on, as Patty said, we do have other towers on the reservation that are on private land. So I wanted to just clarify what I had said previously. Thank you.
All right. So we have a motion on the floor by James Cross. The secretary had some questions.
I just had our records person research. And resolution 1203 approved a service agreement. But when she pulled it up, there was an unsigned document. This is what was on our record. We still haven't found a master business lease agreement that is being addressed here. We don't have the attached or minutes from the committees.
Dave Poyer.
Mr. Chairman, and that's why yesterday during land, rather than go through all these questions and answers through land, then we referred it to the council because we knew the same things were going to come back up again and kind of reinvent. And that's why, and I guess until last night, or yesterday after the land meeting, they found out, we didn't know that, till we was told yesterday that Verizon was here. And then I guess there's some type of agreement in it. And I don't think anybody knew that Verizon was on these towers. And the question was, like I said earlier, is the subleasing. So I don't know, to me, it looks like, just sitting here thinking, all that we could probably approve of today is them to work with the land office to come up with these new sites and maybe renew the old sites. But as far as anything else, the attorneys are gonna have to work this out about agreements, and I don't know, maybe John has worked these out. Because right now, we're kind of all in the dark and shooting from the hip on this thing. Because to me, I don't think, according to the CFR and what AT&T did not let, or somebody didn't let the Bureau know that Verizon, and I'm assuming that they're leasing space from AT&T. And I don't know if that's true or what, or who, somebody's getting paid out of this, and they said utilities, but see, we're not aware of that. But it's all apples and oranges mixed, and kind of nobody knows what's going on. I mean, we need to work this thing out so we get it on the right step. I guess that's kind of what I'm trying to do here.
What do you propose to do?
Well, I'm thinking that we need to get that site in Red Shirt, Martin, Sharps, what was the fourth one? Oh, Casino. And then there's a new site, I mean, not new site, there's two of these. I don't know if these are the two, but two sites were up for renewal to the land committee yesterday, and we held off on them till today. They have two sites on here, and I'm not quite sure where these are at. Oh, wait, now the ones at Red Shirt, these must be the new ones, Red Shirt and Prairie Winds Casino.
That's correct.
So those two, so I don't know. Go ahead.
President Weston, could I
Please.
respond? Well, first I'd like to respond to the Secretary's, the resolution she found on the agreement. That is the agreement that was never adopted that John talked about in 2012. The agreement that was signed by President Steele that we're operating under today, and I'm going to try to segregate this, okay? So we have a service agreement between AT&T and the Oglala Sioux Tribe, and that was adopted by Resolution 16-31, and President Steele signed this service agreement as well as AT&T signed the service agreement. So that's the first one. The second issue, which is the leases, okay? The leases were actually originally executed in 2009 between Altel and the Oglala Sioux Tribe. When AT&T purchased these properties, we then asked and received approval from the tribe to take those leases over. And we operated under those for the first 5 years. In 2014, we gave notice that we wanted to then renew them for the next 5 years. And those were approved by the BIA. What was outstanding for those 7 leases is what additional dollars were going to be needed to be paid, if any. We needed the appraisal. That's what we now have from the BIA, is that appraisal information. So that's the second part of that. The third part is our request that went in 2012. We requested, sent notice to the Land Office, to the BIA, and to the Economic and Business Development Office of this tribe, which we were required to do under the TWSA that we inherited when we purchased the Altel properties. So we sent that. We then received back from the tribe, signed by the Office of Economic Development. The director at that time signed those papers, which we thought gave us approval to allow Verizon on the towers. What happened between Verizon and the utilities office, I have no idea. Okay, that was news to me yesterday when Steve Purrier advised me that there is some lease between the tribe and Verizon that is being paid to the utilities office. That's why I said, we have the service agreement for Lifeline. We have valid master lease agreements for each of our towers. The issue outstanding there on the 7 towers is, what additional monies do we owe you? That's what's in the resolution for the 7 towers. And that resolution then goes one step further and says, whatever that amount is, we would then take that and use those same amounts and pay those on the new towers that we want to construct. And then we will have to, if that is adopted by the tribal council, then we will then need to have our attorneys work with the land office attorneys to put that into paper where we come to an agreement of terms, and then we'll be back to get a final approval from the tribe. Then that will be transmitted to the BIA for them to sign off on it, and as Patty said, so they can enforce it. I don't know if that helps clarify, but those are the three areas that we've got here.
Dave Poyer.
See, somehow a director signed off on an agreement with Verizon, which is not recognized, had no authority to sign off for the tribe. And what I'm saying is we have to get that agreement with Verizon and these towers, everybody legal. Either you or the vice president sign off on the leases, not a program director or whatever, how that one went. What I'm saying is get it back and track the way that that should be, not letting everybody sign. But in the meantime, and that's what I said, is these sites that they are trying to seek, and I guess the two of them was on for yesterday, and you mentioned there's four, that they can proceed, but that somebody's going to have to get all this so-called documents that are out there, get them in legal order so that the Bureau has record and our Secretary's office has record of this document in case we're all not here next year. Thank you.
James Cross.
We can bring this back to the committee and have everything ready for the September.
For the September meeting.
Yeah, it's we'll
So
do all
you
the
had a motion. You had a motion on the floor.
Yeah, the motion was to approve the resolution.
Yep.
But we can just hash this out in committee and then sit down with.
So you still want to recognize? You want me to recognize your motion to approve that, or you want to take everything back and then bring it all back?
Well, I want to ask Juanita if there's some timelines on this. Is there?
The concern I have, if the resolution that's before you is not adopted today, then we still don't have your approval to move forward for the new sites. And so that's the dilemma we find ourselves in. What I had hoped for today is that we would pass the resolution, we could get our lawyers working to get the paperwork done so that we could come back at the end of September with leases, so we could begin work on the two sites which were brought to the Land Committee of Red Shirt and Prairie Wind. We're still working to identify land for the other two sites with the land office, but we could at least get started on those two sites, because we can't do anything until we have your approval and the signature of the BIA on those leases. And once you approve it, it's got to be transmitted to the BIA. They have to sign off. And then once we have that, then we really have the green light. And so I will defer to whatever the council wants to do. It's just a matter of every time we delay, it just delays us getting started on the services that you're asking us to give you.
Okay.
I want to stick with my motion to approve the resolution.
I have recognized your motion. I have a second by Austin Watkins. Question, and then by the secretary, and then Robin Tapia will read the resolution.
Council, is there a way we can get in the resolution, once Robin reads, you'll see where it talks about the master business lease on the 4th page or so. Can we get a copy of that for our records so that we're not going through this down the line somewhere and we don't have the documents? Thank you.
Juanita can get that to you, Secretary?
I can do it, or if you want it, Patty also has it. Has it right here with her. So Patty could give you a copy today.
Could you have forwarded that copy?
I can forward electronic, or Patty could give you a paper.
Okay, all right. So we have a motion and a second. Please read the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Resolution of the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council of the Oglala Sioux Tribe and Unincorporated Tribe. Resolution of the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council of the Oglala Sioux Tribe approving new lease rates and administering new proposed site leases under the AT&T Master Business Lease. Whereas the Oglala Sioux Tribe adopted its constitution and bylaws by referendum vote on December 14th, 1935 in accordance with Section 16 of the Indian Reorganization Act of 1934, 25 U.S.C. subsection 5123J, and under Article 3 of the Constitution, the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council is the governing body of the Oglala Sioux Tribe. And whereas Article, I believe that is 4, Section 1F of the Constitution of the Oglala Sioux Tribe authorizes the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council to manage all economic affairs and enterprises of the Oglala Sioux Tribe. And whereas pursuant to the Tribal Constitution and bylaws of the Oglala Sioux Tribe, the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council is vested with authority in Article 4, Section 1T to delegate to the subordinate boards or officers any of the enumerated powers in Article 4, Section 1, reserving the right to review any action taken by virtue of such delegated powers. And whereas AT&T currently has 7 cell towers deployed on tribal trust lands on the Pine Ridge Reservation, and the related site leases are all administered under the AT&T Master Business Leases with the Oglala Sioux Tribe dated April 14, 2009. And whereas the initial site lease terms and annual rental rates for each of the 7 AT&T cell towers were generally set as follows. Term: January 1, 2009 through December 31st, 2014, an annual rent $6,000. And whereas under the AT&T Master Business Lease and all active site leases under this master lease, the annual rent would be adjusted for each succeeding renewal term as follows. The annual rate for each succeeding term shall be adjusted by mutual agreement by the parties and approval by the Secretary. The method of review and adjustment shall be by appraisal for fair market value rent, exclusive of improvements or developments required by the master lease parentheses or the contributive value of such improvements. And whereas in January and February 2014, AT&T provided notices of intent to extend lease terms for each of the 7 site leases for an additional 5 years, i.e. January 1, 2015 through December 31st, 2019, to the Bureau of Indian Affairs, parentheses BIA, and the Oglala Sioux Tribe for then followed up with inquiries. The BIA Realty Office on the process BIA would follow in conducting the appraisal processes. And whereas per AT&T's September 20th, 2016 letter to BIA Realty Office, AT&T followed up multiple times with BIA from early 2014 through September 2016 to inquire about the appraisal process and rental rates for the current renewal period, parentheses, i.e. 2015 to 2019, stating, AT&T has not received any further information regarding the appraisals, nor whether a shortfall in the current lease rate compared to the new ones exists, so AT&T can determine whether it needs to write the OST a check or whether it will receive a refund. And whereas the Office of Special Trustees acknowledged in October 2016 that the appraisals had not been completed and that the appraisal work would be initiated as soon as agency funding was available. And whereas the BIA Realty Office submitted an appraisal report to the Oglala Sioux Tribe Land Office on February 26, 2018 that makes several observations and recommendations. Number 1, the report observes that rental rates for cell tower ground leases are typically adjusted through a fixed escalation provision rather than appraisal process, and notes the market standard is typically a 10% rent increase at the time of renewal for a 5-year term. Number 2, the report applies the above market standard to recommend a new annual rental rate of $6,600 per site for the current renewal period, which is also the same rate that would have applied automatically upon renewal in 2015 if the fixed escalation provision had been in the original lease. And number 3, following that same industry standard for rental adjustments, the report suggests that the rental rate should be adjusted by 10% upon renewal of the next 5-year term. parentheses, i.e. $7,260 for the 2020 to 2024 5-year renewal term. And whereas the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council recognizes that a fixed escalation provision for future rental rate adjustments under the AT&T master business lease and all active site leases under this master lease would not only be consistent with industry standards, but also would ensure timely and stable rate increases that keep up with inflation to benefit the Oglala Sioux Tribe and would conserve BIA resources by eliminating the need for future appraisals. And whereas under this new rental adjustment method, the annual rent for the 2020 to 2024 renewal period for the active AT&T site leases would be automatically set at $7,260 per site upon renewal in January 2020. And whereas on a related initiative, AT&T is currently considering deploying additional cell towers on Pine Ridge Reservation that would be used to enhance the coverage of both the AT&T cellular network and the FirstNet public safety network, for which AT&T is the lead contractor. And whereas the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council recognizes that the deployment of the additional AT&T cell towers would be beneficial, and that administering these new site leases under the AT&T master business lease would ensure an efficient and timely deployment of such cell towers. And whereas the Economic and Business Development Committee did meet in a regular session on Friday, I don't know what the date was, 2018, and approve referring this AT&T lease proposal to the Land and Natural Resource Committee for consideration and referral to the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council. And whereas the Land and Natural Resource Committee did meet in a regular session on 2018 and approved the AT&T lease resolution and submitted this resolution to the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council. Now, therefore, it be resolved that the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council approves the new BIA appraised value of $6,600 annual rent for each active cell tower site lease under AT&T master business lease, and understands that this adjusted rental rate should apply for the entire current renewal period of 2015 to 2019. And be it further resolved that to the extent AT&T has only paid $6,000 in annual rent for a cell tower site during the 2015 to 2019 renewal period, the Tribal Council instructs BIA to request AT&T to provide a supplemental payment to the tribe that covers the incremental $600 rental increase for all relevant years for all applicable site leases during the current 2015 to 2019 renewal period. And be it further resolved that the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council recommends that the AT&T master business lease and all active site leases under this master lease be amended by replacing the rental adjustment provision cited above with a new provision that states that, number one, the annual rate will increase by 10% upon renewal for each succeeding renewal term, and number two, the fixed 10% rental adjustment does not require BIA approval. And be it finally resolved that the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council approves using the AT&T master business lease as amended per rental provision resolution above for any ground leases for new AT&T cell towers on the Pine Ridge Reservation that will also be used to build out the FirstNet public safety network, and that the initial rent should be set at $7,260 per site, assuming these new site leases commence in 2019 or 2020 to maintain parity within the active AT&T site leases. With that, I live.
We have a motion by Robin Tapio. Chancey Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I'm going to motion to table this because there's so many uncertainties and what ifs, and there needs to be a full package when it comes and be presented instead of piecemeal in this. That's how I really feel. And, you know, we're going to approve a lease tower here, but the whole contract might not, you know, there's just too many uncertainties. So I guess I'm going to motion to table and bring it back, have EB&D committee work on it and bring it back within 30 days.
Bring it back to the September meeting. Yeah. So we have a motion to table, seconded by Jim Meeks. Call for the vote, please.
Blaine Little Thunder.
Oh.
Jim Meeks.
Yes.
Cora Whitehorse. Stanley Lil Whiteman.
No.
Austin Watkins. Chancey Wilson.
Yes.
Stephanie Leisure.
Yes.
Valentina Merdanian. Lydia Bearkiller.
No.
James Cross.
No.
Ella Giancarlo.
Yes.
Richard Greenwald.
Yes.
Robin Tapio.
Here.
Philip Goodcrow.
Help.
David Puyer. Jackie Sears. Colin C.J. Clifford.
How?
Craig Dillon.
No.
The motion to carry, to table, did carry. 10 yes, 7 no, 1 not voting. Okay. Just for an FYI, EB&D will take this all back to your committee and be in place with everyone and start your process. Thank you. Richard Greenwald.
I'd like to see all them documents, you know, that led up to this, and then also the issue with the Utilities Commission and Verizon, if there was documents signed and what authorities that were with that, and then to have that come back so we have the complete package when we get it.
Okay. All right. Our next item, James Cross.
Just real quickly, can we assign Jennifer to start working with Juanita on this?
I can do that. I can do that. That's your motion.
Motion.
Motion by James Cross, seconded by Craig Dillon to assign Attorney Bear Eagle to create and finish the process to take back to the committee. Call for the vote, please.
Lane Little Thunder. Jim Meeks.
Yes.
Cora Whitehorse. Stanley Lil Whiteman.
Yes.
Austin Watkins. Chancey Wilson.
Yes.
Stephanie Leisure.
Yes.
Valentina Merdanian. Lydia Bearkiller.
Yes.
James Cross. Ella Giancarlo.
Yes.
Richard Greenwald.
Yes.
Robin Tapio. Philip Goodcrow. David Puyer. Jackie Sears. Colin C.J. Clifford.
How?
Craig Dillon.
Yes.
Motion did carry 17 yes, 1 not voting. Thank you, council. I want to take a 5-minute break. I need to make a call to one of our other attorneys, Steve Gunn, on another lawsuit, but we'll take a 15-minute break and I'll be right back, okay? And then we'll go into that. That'll give Steve Wilson a chance to pass out his report for the storm processes. That's as per your request, okay? All right, thank you. We call us back into session out of our break at 5:11. I have Mr. Steve Wilson. Before we begin, council, I know we've still got a lot of issues and items that we need to deal with, so we will continue tomorrow because I believe that was the intent when we had the 28th and we added the 29th on her just to make sure. So we will reconvene tomorrow, but after this, I'll just call us into recess after Mr. Wilson's report.
Thank you, Lloyd. We're back
And
with
then,
the
we'll come
regular
back
session of
tomorrow.
the Tribal Council.
So with
They're
that,
announcing right
I
now
have,
that they're going to wrap up
Mr.
soon
Steve Wilson
and come back again
to give
tomorrow.
his update
We're
on
going to go to
storm.
Steve Wilson from the
Storms.
OST
Yes.
Emergency Management.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Steve Wilson, OST Emergency Manager. Kind of recap real quick about what went on with the last council meeting. Well, last time I was here with an update. Right now, we're looking at about 549 homes that have been affected by.
Thank you.
Yep. have been affected by the storms on July 27th and July 29th. Since we had those two storms, we engaged in emergency repairs, close-ups, intakes, intake sheets, information sheets, assessments, damage assessments. And then since then, we've also done a walkthrough with FEMA, the Small Business Administration, and got the estimates from those two entities. We got the estimates back from FEMA, which was low, which we knew would probably be low. I think when everybody thinks about FEMA coming in, probably 95% of the time we don't have the damages for FEMA to be here. So major and destroyed damages weren't there that they required to make that an easy decision for the President's office. So, but we moved ahead with filing for the presidential disaster, the declaration with the U.S. President. We still have some issues out there right now with some of the homes for emergency repairs. We have septic systems that are backed up. We have some roads that need a little bit of maintenance. We have electrical issues. We have water issues in some of them. But right now we have the roof issue that we're dealing with right now, and it's causing a lot more damage within the home. So those things are adding up quick. You know, we're still not out of our heavy rain season, bad storm season. We still have you know, winter to look forward to. So what we got put together for you since then is the estimates, damage estimates of what we're looking at for Pine Ridge districts, Medicine Root district, we got White Clay district, and Wakwamani district. What we put together was kind of a low, medium, and high estimate for repairs. Remember we talked a little bit before about probably going to be back in the same spot again next year, and in years to come if we start going back to the same way that we, you know, that we use the building materials for that are on some of these cheaper FEMA homes and temporary homes like that. So. You know, those numbers are pretty high. The damage is quite a bit out there. So, you know, we got siding, roofing, and windows that we got estimates on. We do have some trailer houses out there, the mobile homes that have foundation damage that we have to address right away. Out in the Kyle area, and actually a couple in Wounded Knee area as well, from a previous storm tornado that came through there. We are with the process with FEMA. We got the declaration completed yesterday, got the paperwork in, and FEMA accepted it yesterday afternoon. What that means is they're going to take a couple days to go through it, and they'll get back to us on what they find and what their recommendations are, and then from there it'll go to President Trump's office, administration. And talking with them on a timeline, you know, the bad news on that is it can go quick. It could go 6 to 8 months for a decision. So, but this is the process that we chose to take. So, you know, it's one avenue. Like I said, you know, we don't want to nail ourselves down to one option, but we put in for that one, and they accepted it for review. So, one of the things that one of the other options is the ONAP, the HUD IT grants, imminent threat grants. They don't want to engage in the process, the application process right now until they see a decision from the U.S. President one way or another. So that means you know, we'd have to wait that time before we apply for that option. So timing is everything, I guess, right now, and those are decisions that you guys will have to make on the process we move forward with. Winter is coming. We do have some serious damage out there on these homes. So, you know, in putting that declaration letter together for the Trump administration, you know, we included just about everything, including the kitchen sink on it, including the CDC issue with West Nile disease, sitting water, and also mold that's going to get in some of these homes. So from being open, you know, we put past storms in there, past damages. We talked about costs. We talked about a lot of the personal belongings and items that were lost during these storms, just to keep their windows sealed up as the hail was coming in. So we got a lot of personal items that are embedded with hail that or glass that we can't, that none of them can recover. So, you know, that's kind of where we're at today. We've you know, one of the stipulations with the IT grant nowadays from, I think, past a year is any expenses that we incur or anything that's on us. There's no reimbursements with this IT grant nowadays, so anything we spend, that's on us. They made that perfectly clear, and so what we got into that right now is roughly about $60,000. We want to keep that cost low because of that fact. You know, we don't have the the funds to do a full-blown operation of this magnitude. So that's what we've spent so far amongst multiple programs, materials, fuel, wages, and the shelter that we did for the handicap and the special needs for the casino. So we're roughly about $61,000 that we've spent so far on this operation. So I think the next decision, I guess, you know, as far as going forward is, you know, what are we going to do? Are we going to give that time to get to the administration for a decision, or do we move forward with other options? So, I mean, that's kind of the magic question right now for everybody is, you know, how fast do we want to move with this? Our office is getting bombarded with calls. Why aren't you doing something? Why aren't you doing anything? You know, everything that we do is a process, from paperwork to submitting applications to actually doing the work. Accountability has to be, it's got to be there. I mean, we go back multiple times and do assessments and costs and other things, but that's required for the applications that we submit from FEMA. So I know they're getting tired. Well, people have been here already 2 times, 3 times. Well, we have to go back. We have to get that information. That's what's required of us to do. I know people are getting, you know, a little upset. I had some individuals come that were a little bit unruly to the office, but you know, we get the phone calls as well. You know, and I think just we put a few things out on our social media pages, trying to explain the process of what we do and how we do it, and going for damages of this dollar amount. We have to follow the rules, and we have to follow the appropriate application channels when it comes to that. So that's kind of it in a nutshell right there. You know,
Jackie Sears, CJ Clifford.
Yeah, Steve, of these, the list here that you gave us, how many of them are housing houses?
0. These are all private.
Private ones?
Private homes, yeah.
Okay, because I understand that housing will take care of the housing ones.
Yes.
Okay.
You said we'd have to look at the other options we got. Do we have other options that we have, Steve?
Right now, we have, you know, one of the other options is the ONAP PUD IT grant. Without a declaration from the U.S. President, it was relayed to us that amount would be a $450,000 IT grant if it was denied from the Trump office, Trump administration office. if it was approved, we'd be looking at a $900,000 IT grant, you know, for that, and with the aid of FEMA and other aids, so.
So then my next question is that we had moved on giving you some financial assistance. Have you gotten that report ready for us so that we could go ahead and approve that amount? Are you working with Mason on that yet? Where are we at with that? And are you currently satisfied with what you got, or where are you standing with your program?
Well, right now, we have, with multiple storms over the summer, we have taken on some heavy costs, so we're under 20,000 right now for our program. So we do need some help. We've been working back and forth with Mason. Like I said, like he said, I don't come asking for money unless I really need it. Something like this, we really don't know, so we want to make sure we have good numbers before we start talking about money and things like that from our office.
So you're okay with 20,000, what you got right now?
Not right now.
Is that what you're saying?
No. What I'm saying is that's what we have.
Okay, I mean, yeah, I understand.
We're gonna need some. We have fire season to worry about. We have winter to worry about. We get hit twice in our budget with winter, so we still have 2 more seasons and to get through this one here before things
So
are.
was you able to draw down any amount of monies that we approved for you to draw down?
What we've approved so far, yes, we've taken it.
So you've taken the 125,000 already?
Yes, and with multiple storms and efforts, it's been expended pretty quickly.
So it would be probably a good deal for us to go ahead and look at approving some more dollars for our emergency management program. Since Cora's not sitting there, I'm gonna say another 75,000 straight up. You know, it's actual need. He needs to operate, and
Okay,
without
let's let him finish his report, and then we'll come back to you, okay? I've got some people with questions. I have Tina, and then I have Robin. And then Dave, and then Stephanie, and then Jim, and then Ella, and then, no.
So, Steve, with the information that you handed out as to the materials as far as labor, and you gave an estimate per district, and with the 5 districts, or 4 here, the total estimated, if we were looking at using materials that would not be damaged, completely damaged in the future, like aluminum siding, like metal roofs, and of course the windows. I would like to see plexiglass estimates on there as well. But given those materials for a total combination for all 4 districts, we're looking at $9,976,888.04 for all 4 districts to have those materials and labor to repair those homes. So that's a total based upon what you submitted on the materials and labor. And for me, looking at White Clay District, Oglala District, you know, we're looking just in the roofs at $2 million in materials for metal roofs. And so, and $1 million for aluminum siding. And in Oglala, there was 250 plus homes that were completely damaged outside of the houses. And I know last council meeting, I requested 30,000 per district to start with at least some of those materials and some of those repairs given winter's coming. So I was told that we needed to wait until you brought the estimates, and I want to know what our contingency plan is, because the reality is, you know, whether FEMA comes in or not, these homes still need to be repaired. We still need to help the people who have no income. And do we have a priority list based upon those assessments? And with that, you know, I also am requesting that the district get reimbursed because they used allocation monies to send out teams, not only to in Oglala, but Wakbomni and also to Kyle. And so I brought this up in finance, and they're saying that emergency management is to reimburse Oglala for those allocations used. And now understanding you only have 20,000 in your program budget. So I'd like to make a motion on the floor that Oglala District get reimbursed from the general fund budget for that amount that has been occurred through the day labor, and that's $3,900 and I think it was $84 was the amount. So I would like to make that motion that at least that amount gets reimbursed to the district allocations, and then from there learn more if we have a contingency plan in place.
I'm going to recognize your motion, but I'm going to let everybody finish up and then we'll come back. Because CJ wanted to make a motion and so did you. So now I have Robin, Dave, Stephanie, and Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question, Steve. So what is your current budget as of today?
We're just under 20,000.
Okay, thank you.
Dave Poyer.
Chairman, Steve, I don't see, and I know that the storm, one storm took place earlier in the spring in Porcupine and one a year ago at Sharps. Why don't we have estimate on those?
We are working on those right now for you, so we'll get those included. This is just from the storm that we're doing the declaration on, but we've included those numbers with the declaration that we submitted.
Okay. Stephanie Leisure.
Steve, are you aware of any donations that individuals may have wanted to donate to any of their particular districts? Are they the tribe?
Yes, we've had people that have called, and we were referring everything up to the treasurer's office. There's actually a few of them that have. Some of them needed some information that we're working on, trying to get that real quick for them. So they want to look at doing possibly 20 windows. They need a cost for 20. So we have to go back and look at those windows, what type they are, sizes, and the makes of those. So I mean, it takes a little bit longer to get that individual information, but we're working on that as well.
So Mason is keeping track of all of this, or are you keeping track of it?
Everything that we have for donations goes to the treasurer's office.
Okay.
People calling.
Thank you.
Richard Greenwald.
Chair, just to kind of back up what Stephanie said, you know, in this day and age with social media and everything going on, I think that there needs to be a real concerted effort between the treasurer's office and the emergency manager to start getting some photographs, these estimates and these things across the whole world, not just the United States, but start soliciting for donations. I mean, there are people that are willing to donate for causes like this, but we need to put it out there. We need to show these damages and stuff like that. And let's be realistic. Where would our tribe get $9 million? You know, if you're not living on this reservation, you have to have insurance, you have to have things like that cover your home whenever tragedy like this happens. We had calls where people thought we were going to give them $10,000 to fix their car because they didn't have insurance. Where are we going to get that kind of money at? It doesn't exist. So we need to be also realistic that the tribe does not have $9 million just to fix everybody's homes for them. So knowing that our treasurer, we have a lot of talented people that work for our tribe that are really good with computers, with designing little things that they could put on Facebook and the social media and spread all across this world asking for help. And people will help, but they got to know that we need help, you know. So I'd like to see a real strong effort with our treasurer's office to get out there and start soliciting help for donations. Because let's be realistic, where are we going to get $9 million at? It doesn't exist. Not right now, it don't, anyways. So I just wanted to share that.
I have Jackie Sears and Blaine Little Thunder.
Yeah, I wanted to second Tina's motion, but I'd like to include Wakbamani and Kyle in that motion.
Duly noted. Blaine Little Thunder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know a while back, you know, I've been working, I got some damages on my district, way out, Eagleness District out there. I've got a trailer house that was damaged, and I did submit request to emergency management. And also, not only houses that were damaged due to also with that storm, rain, and hail, and then got a trailer house that was damaged, and the roof was collapsed and it tore off. So don't forget about our districts out there, and also not only the houses but roads. You know, the roads that were deteriorated and need culverts replaced. And there's one district member out there, way out there, that can't cross the creek. There's, you know, his culvert's gone, so he got to have a different, put a culvert in there, repair his road in order to get back and cross there. So he's got to track across with a saddle just to go back and forth, you know, and then have to trucks to four-wheelers drive to try to get across there. So we need the roads. Can't forget about the roads that was deteriorated. So my district needs help too, but need to get out there. I know the one from Wombly that John was out there to, but he said that, well, he told me was that nobody was living out there. Of course, they can't live in that trailer out because the roof collapsed and tore off, and they needed repair, so they have to relocate for now. They're waiting on their trailer house to get repaired, so that's what they're waiting on. So hopefully, what will be the cost to get the materials if they can fixable, you know, or well, what needs to be done. So that's what they're waiting for. So I just throw that out in their paperwork's there at their office there. So I wanted to add that to with our district. Thank you.
Philip Goodcrow.
Thank you. Just getting back to trying to qualify for FEMA, and I think this happened. So the first thing I wanted to ask is how many homes are not livable or damaged to where it's not livable anymore? Is there any?
Yeah, we do have some right now that are damaged to where we have to repair those. We have one that's completely destroyed. We have, I think, 6 of them out in Kyle right now that are going to need to be put back up on blocks or leveled correctly. Out there, we have 2 in Manderson that are going to need to be re-leveled. They're actually laying down on their frames. We do have homes in Ogallala that have extreme roof damage that's coming in and eating up the ceilings and the walls. They're saturated. We have electrical problems with that. We need electricians to kind of come in and help estimate some of that, you know, that problem that we have. We're going to have to tear out them walls, that ceiling, if they can be saved. Some of these things aren't, we're not able to go back into until we get something done with them. But a lot of people won't leave right now. They don't want to leave their homes open for looting or theft or anything like that. So we've been working with a couple of the local contractors trying to free up one that can come in and help us get these trailers back up on blocks or get them leveled out and anchored down again. And I got to return some calls that I received a little bit ago before he came in here for that. So.
Okay, one other thing, dealing with FEMA, I think with the number of dollars in damage for each, I think 4 areas, like Wakbamani, Kyle, Lake Clay District, and Pine Ridge, the extent of damage that was when FEMA come in here before, I don't think in dollar-wise there was that much dollar damage, but we qualified under FEMA guidelines, and I think that if we push hard on it through administratively, I think it could be done with all your information and so forth, pictures and so forth. I think they should. I don't want to talk too much about it, you know, because you know, FEMA people might be listening out there also too. But I would get with you after this point in time and talk to you a little bit about it.
Okay.
Just real quick on that, we, with the application we submitted, was a lot of pictures. FEMA does not go inside the homes when they do their estimates. They don't do the extent that we do, actually measuring out a home, measuring a window. They go through and they'll do a wide sweep of it, and what they're gonna gauge that by is effects, major, damaged, things like that in a category. They don't really look for, the internals, what's happening when that roof does leak. So I think we captured that in our information and put that in our application, but it never does hurt to call people that are in Washington and say, we submitted this, here's what we submitted, and I don't know if that has any effect or harmful effects or good effects, but. No.
Ella John Carlo.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to see Pine Ridge included in that resolution as well. The total amount for that comes up to about $30,000. And where are we gonna get that from? Any ideas? Maybe this issue should be tabled and taken back to Finance Committee so we have an idea where it's gonna come from. Okay, that's my motion. Table it and take it back to Finance.
Your motion is to table the report and take back to Finance to deal with. With the second by Craig Dillon and Chancey Wilson. Call for the vote, please. No, we're over.
Lane Little Thunder.
Oh.
Jim Mix.
Yes.
Cora Whitehorse. Stanley Little White Man.
Yes.
Austin Watkins. Chancey Wilson.
Yes.
Stephanie Leisure.
Yes.
Valentina Merdanian.
Here.
Lydia Bearkiller.
Yes.
James Cross. Ella John Carlo.
Yes.
Richard Greenwald.
Yes.
Robin Tapio.
Huh.
Philip Goodcrow.
No.
David Puyer. Jackie Sears.
Yeah.
Colin C.J. Clifford.
Here.
Craig Dillon.
Yes.
Motion to table and take back to Finance. 15 yes, 2 no, and 1 not voting. Thank you, Council. Stephanie and then Austin.
I just had a comment. We tabled that. The motion had been tabled, but I would like to see a timeline on it as to how soon this can get resolved. Because we got a lot of homes and people out there that need our help. And especially with the letter sent to the United States President, I guess I want to see, in that letter was the state of our tribe taken into consideration with regard to our employment, with regard to our housing issues. A lot of our people out there cannot afford insurance, home insurance. Not only that, we don't have our own structure fire department, so that prohibits a lot of our homeowners from even getting insurance. And for almost $10 million, that damage to me is very significant, especially for this tribe. Thank you.
Austin Watkins.
Thank you, Chairman. Steve, I was glad what you said about that trailer, but if it's possible, if you could at least get that going, because she is an elderly, and I'd hate to have her leave us and we're still having that trailer on the side like that. So if you can make that a priority, I'd really appreciate that. And, like you said, these contractors that you've talked to, some of them we know, and they are from this reservation, so if they're listening, they should help out. These are our people. We got to start helping one another, because winter is coming, and it's coming fast. So, I hope they're hearing this instead of charging the tribe an arm and a leg to help out the people. Help.
Richard Greenwald.
Chair, I'd like to, if we have to do it in motion form, to do a motion to have the treasurer and Steve and them start gathering information and preparing that website for these donations immediately, not to wait any time, to start doing it now. And if you have any families, I think, Steve, that were willing to do a video of say, these are all of us that live in this house, and these are my children, and winter's coming, and I don't know what to do, and things like that. If somebody's willing to be part of something that we could send out to help get these donations in, hit all of our casino-rich tribes to see if they will donate everything they can do to get something here now. Chair, I'd like to do a motion to have that immediately start.
Motion
right
by
away.
Richard Greenwald, seconded by Robin Tapio. Call for the vote, please.
Lane Little Thunder.
Oh.
Jim Meeks.
Yep.
Cora Whitehorse. Stanley Little White Man. Austin Watkins. Chauncey Wilson.
Yes.
Stephanie Leisure.
Yes.
Valentina Merdanian.
Oha.
Lydia Bearkiller.
Yes.
James Cross. Ella Giancarlo.
Yes.
Richard Greenwald.
Yes.
Robin Tapio.
That's what it was.
Philip Goodcrow.
Oh.
David Puyer. Jackie Sears.
Yeah.
Colin C.J. Clifford.
Yeah.
Craig Dillon.
I have motion did carry 15 yes, 2 no, and 1 not voting. Lydia Bearkiller.
Okay, on the same note, I asked Steve, how come our Allen homes that were reported and they did go out there and those aren't a part of our report? So he said that he's gonna make sure it gets on here. But you know, if we, Scott, you know, you guys that go to DC, I don't think we're gonna get an answer within 30 days, and winter's coming. So like with the resolution that we just passed, I think we need to just try to go out and get our own money. The tribe needs to do that. And we're sitting here waiting for FEMA. Like you said, FEMA didn't even cover nothing on Porcupine. And those people are still waiting. So however we can contact whatever resources is out there, I think we just need to request for that help and do it ourselves. Because this waiting for FEMA, ONAP is going to wait till see if President Trump is going to sign off and help us. I don't think President Trump's going to help us. You know, but we're going to sit here and wait for Trump's administration to address it, and then ONAP will deal with it. I don't agree with that. It's not going to happen. But with the stress and with the way homes are and these kids, or children living in them, the way it is, I'm not worried about reimbursing, you know, because everybody should have got out there and did something. But the biggest part is this 10 million sitting in front of us and how to address that. And I've been checking with the treasurer, and he's been giving some reports about what's coming in and what's there and all that. And then I don't know if the money we're funding his office for is buying the material, but I think that's the kind of report that we wanted to see, was the option, who approved it? Did we get any kind of finances? Did anybody commit to a large donation? Did anybody commit to like the casinos? That's what I was hoping that we would have today, was at least the dollar amount of what came in, or if it was approved, you know, if ONAP approved it or FEMA approved it. But I guess there's going to be no answers there for a while. And I don't think that we should wait till the snow flies to try to hustle and get this done.
Okay. Stanley Little White Man. You're in line. Just put your hand down. You'll be all right.
You know, Chairman, one of the things that Steve mentioned in his report was the starting point of this whole idea of going after additional funding, and that is that declaration. And I don't think we've addressed that. We've addressed everything locally, the attempts to get resources and stuff, but I don't even think we've made an effort to have the people that we do have in Washington attempting to get that declaration. And I think that's one of the things that we need to do, is concentrate on that part of it. I mean, we forgot about it. I mean, yeah, Lydia may have gave up on it, but I think that's still the option that we still have. The other stuff is good. However, we still need to put our people in Washington to try to get that declaration signed, because that's something I don't think we've even discussed here, even from the previous.
I was going to make that point.
So
I did give the declarations that I signed on behalf of all of the damages. You know, Jeannie Hovland used to be Senator Thune's lead staffer. She now is the CEO of the A&A Grant Authority. So I did visit with her. I did meet with her. Richard and I did meet with her when we were in DC the last time, and so we got her all of those declarations, so that her and her staff that she was just putting together were going to go out and using Senator Thune and Senator Rounds' offices, and they were going to go out and start going to these offices for us. But we just keep maintaining that communications back and forth to where we can start getting, but it's, there again, it's a government process, and it's going to take 30 to 60 days to even get a response. But she said that there was going to be some continuity from her office to us in order to make sure that it starts happening. So she said, give me 3 weeks to a month to see where we're at. So I did, and that was 2 weeks ago that I did submit those letters to her. Okay? Yeah, where there was them too. That all that, what Steve just talked about, that was in there. So we've got some issues that we got to do. Jim Meeks and then CJ Clifford.
I got the floor, boys. You know, we never mentioned the state, but we got a couple people out there campaigning for governor. And Billy Sutton, I know him. And if he can get something going through the state, he'll do it. Somebody already talked to Billy Sutton? You did? Okay, she's ahead of me.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of people ahead of you, Jim. Yeah, unfortunately, there's somebody ahead of you. CJ Clifford.
You know, I know that the amount of money that I was attempting to get Steve was not about him fixing things. His company needs to, the emergency management part needs to operate. And he needs dollars to operate. His $20,000 is going to be out here in probably a couple weeks easily. But he has nothing to operate on after that. So that was my request to all of you, my colleagues, is that we go ahead and allow him some dollars in his account, and that's why I suggested $75,000.
Well,
that would carry him for a while. Thank you.
That discussion ceased when the motion to table and refer back to finance. Everything within that process goes back to finance. Council made a vote. That was just done.
If it's tabled, it's tabled.
So it's tabled. But I was just giving you your chance to speak. So council, we are done for the day. No, that was done too. That was a part of that one. His was the original motion. And yours was going to add in Ogallala's and Kyle and Walk-Bomney and Pine Ridge. All of that ceased right there. When they tabled everything for the storms, went back to finance. So we are going to recess. I'm going to call us into recess at 5:51 p.m. and we will reconvene at 10 a.m. tomorrow. Craig Dillon, would you give us a closing prayer, please?